You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran, episode 47. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. It's the first Friday of November 2020, so it's time for another Favorite Teacher episode. I've been thinking about doing a Lessons Learned from Jenny Blake episode throughout this year, but then I decided not to because I haven't been following Jenny as closely during 2020 as I have in the past. But lately, she has been popping into my mind a lot, so I decided to reconsider my decision and go ahead with this episode about another one of my favorite teachers, Jenny Blake. Jenny Blake is an author, an international speaker, a podcaster, and a solopreneur. And I can't remember the first time I encountered Jenny, but I'm pretty sure it was love at first read. And it is so interesting because I must have found her through her blog or her book called Life After College. But I was not her target market when I found her. I was deep into an advanced version of my career, not really life after college. I wasn't the typical recent college grad that she was writing to. But I guess it is so true what they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Something about her message must have resonated with me because I got on her mailing list, and once I started getting Jenny's emails, that's when I fell in love. Whenever I saw her name in my inbox, I immediately clicked to read what she had to say. She always gives great insight, clever and interesting recommendations, and helpful tips. And today, I thought I would do this episode a little differently and give you 10 reasons why I love Jenny Blake in no particular order. Reason number 1 is her genuine enthusiasm. If you listen to Jenny's podcast or read any of her writing, you will probably notice what I noticed. Her genuine enthusiasm and kindness. It is infectious. When I hear how she asks questions and I hear her talk about things that she has learned and things that she loves and teachers who she follows, I get drawn in and I want more of it. Number 2 is her curiosity. She's interested in so many different topics, and she's always trying new things. I've followed along over the years, and I've seen her reinvent herself in so many ways, from a corporate trainer to a yoga enthusiast to a meditation app creator to an online conference host to a theology student, among so many other things. And she is a great example to me of how to follow a hero's journey along a winding and twisting path, being open to whatever curiosity offers. The third thing that I love about Jenny Blake is, and I say this with so much love and admiration, her geekiness. When I think about Jenny, I think she embodies delight and organization. So it's no surprise that Jenny has said that her business is all about love and systems. I love that. I am a big fan of systems and organization. If I can put something in a spreadsheet, I will. And I love how organized Jenny is. But it's not in a cold way. She's not systematic like a robot. She really cares that people get what they need if they do things from their heart, that they understand where she's coming from. It is beautiful. The fourth thing I love about Jenny Blake is her newsletter. Like I mentioned, as soon as I got on her newsletter email list, I quickly realized that it was full of gold. Every single email that I got from her, I opened and found something interesting or helpful or inspiring or a new tool that I could fall in love with. Once, she described that she was still using her old iPhone 5 SE, I think, or maybe I'm just misremembering it because that's what I have. But she described how her battery life was not what it used to be, which is the same problem I was having. So she bought herself a lipstick-shaped battery bank to carry around with her to give her phone a charge throughout the day. And I loved that recommendation, so I went and bought the same battery charger, and I love it too. The fifth thing that I love about Jenny Blake is a postcard from Jenny. She mailed me a postcard in the mail early on in our quote-unquote relationship. I must have mentioned or commented on a post or shared something on social media that Jenny had posted about, and it caught her attention. So she responded asking for my mailing address because she wanted to send me a postcard. I felt so acknowledged and appreciated. It was so sweet of her to recognize my comment or recommendation of her and then send me something in the actual mail. Everyone loves to get personal mail, right? The number 6 thing I love about Jenny Blake is a story she told about a yoga pose. I heard her describe how in a specific yoga sequence, maybe, I'm not sure, I don't really practice yoga, but all the work and the effort is all preparation for the corpse pose so that once you get there, you can totally let go of everything and completely release and relax. And then the very next pose is a fetal pose, so it's like a rebirth. I can't remember if I heard it on one of her momentum calls or a podcast or some kind of training presentation that she did, but I just know I heard her describe that yoga sequence with the final yoga pose, which was just laying down and resting. And I think she was maybe telling the story as a metaphor for doing all of our daily activities and going through all of our struggles and challenges, all with the purpose of having a really peaceful rest at the end. I may not be telling the story correctly. I may have gotten the metaphor wrong, or maybe I missed her point completely, but I always remember that metaphor and always felt really appreciative of the idea that maybe the purpose of all of this is a restful rest after all the work and struggle and challenge. Maybe a restful rest is the whole point. Maybe that's not a weakness or something to try to rush through or to try to avoid. It gives me a different perspective about how I approach thinking about the reason for a rest and how long I should rest and what I'm making resting mean. What if everything we do in life, working, socializing, struggling, exercising, trying, feeling, what if all of it is in preparation for the most perfect restorative resting pose that we then eventually come out of to do all over again? The 7th thing I love about Jenny Blake is the idea of checking in with yourself. I briefly mentioned this list of questions on the co-created questions episode a few weeks ago. I thought I heard this from her podcast, but maybe I read this list in her book, Pivot. When you are noticing that you're not feeling 100%, if something's off, you can check in with these questions and figure out what to do to course correct. I love that these questions are just getting back to the basics. This advice reminds me of something that happened over and over again when I was a sales manager for 5 years. This happened frequently. Someone on my team, a tenured member, would come to me and say, "Something's off. I don't know what's wrong. I'm not getting the results I used to get. I feel stuck." And no matter what they thought the problem was, I would always take them through the basic behaviors and tactics that I taught each new team member. And inevitably, we would always find some basic that they were skipping or rushing through, or that they had substituted with something else. So this is the same idea, but it's about living your life instead of having a sales call. So here are the questions. Am I working out? Am I sleeping well? Am I avoiding buffering? And I don't know if Jenny used that phrase. Basically, it means anything that gives you a false sense of pleasure in the moment instead of dealing with what's really going on. Buffering could be like a behavior like that includes food or alcohol or trashy TV or losing yourself in a book or something that's not serving you. Am I working towards a goal? Am I being generous? And I'm not sure that these were the exact questions that Jenny suggested, or if this is a list that I evolved based on her original suggestion. But since I started with a list from Jenny, I know I have added other questions too based on influence from other favorite teachers. For example, I also added, am I in alignment? Am I making decisions from a place of abundance? The number 8 thing I love so much from Jenny Blake is the phrase, don't suffer twice. This phrase that I first heard from Jenny may be the most often repeated thing that I learned from her. Again, I cannot remember if I heard it on a podcast or in one of her trainings or in a video call, but she told the story, I think, of it was like a friend's mother who recommended this advice to her. Don't suffer twice. Those 3 words are so simple, yet so profound, and they struck me so directly when I first heard them from Jenny, and I've never forgotten them, and I use the expression for myself and others so many times since then because they are so perfect in their advice and simplicity. Whenever I catch myself worrying about something in the future, I can remind myself, don't suffer twice. By worrying now, I would be suffering in the present moment. And then if whatever I'm worrying about does actually happen, then of course I will suffer again when it happens. So that is suffering twice for no benefit. What if I just reserved the suffering for if and when it actually happens and not suffer now in this current moment when it's not even happening and it's not even sure that it will happen? The number 9 thing that I love about Jenny is her book, Pivot. The whole concept of this book is genius. I think a lot of us can identify with the feeling of wanting to or needing to make a change in our lives or in our careers. I loved, even just from the title alone, that we are given permission, that we don't have to make a drastic change and we don't have to trash everything that we worked hard on to start something completely new. I love that she gives us the idea to just pivot, just 1 degree, or just a slight shift to see what's different, or to experience a new perspective, or to try something out. I was reading her book on an airplane coming home from a work trip when I knew I was about to go through a major change in my career, and I really appreciated the exercise and the thought-provoking questions that she provided to give me a way to think about this major change that I was going to make, and also consider if there were ways that I could make a smaller pivot in some areas instead of just diving in headfirst. And the number 10 thing I love about Jenny is her podcast. I could have probably said my favorite about each one of the things that I've mentioned so far on this list. And so, of course, I will say it about this final 10th item on the list too. It's my favorite. I really love Jenny's podcast. I love getting to hear her voice, her expressions. I love hearing her describing and explaining how and what she thinks. She does an amazing job on interviews, and she gets really, really interesting guests who I always end up wanting to know more about. Jenny has introduced and reintroduced me to some of my favorite teachers on her podcast, including Martha Beck, Cal Newport, Susan David, and probably so many more that I am forgetting right now, and many, many more that I haven't even listened to yet. I love that she gets excited with her guests about their work and their thoughts and their ideas. And this wouldn't be a First Friday episode without a thank you card, love note, and fan letter for one of my favorite teachers. So Jenny, I hope you're listening to this. When I first met you, I immediately felt such a kinship because I was working in an employee development space similar to the one you had just come out of. And I was on the horizon of making a big career change that you had already made. You showed me that leaving a big name organization and an established role that you're good at and enjoy to try something new was possible and could make sense and could be a great career move. Thank you for being so generous and thoughtful. You share your journey as an example of how to navigate career and relationships and life. And you give us a peek into how your brain works and how you make decisions for yourself. Your excitement and enthusiasm is so fun. I can imagine that someone else might think, do I really want to share this new app that I'm geeking out with on my newsletter? Does anyone care? And you're like, I can't wait to share this new app with my newsletter. They will love it. And it's true. So thanks, Jenny. Thank you for your amazing newsletter. Thank you for your lovely podcast. Thank you for your insightful books. Thanks for trying new things and putting it all out there. Thank you for being so committed to personal development and systems and organization. You definitely demonstrate both heart and systems. There you go. Those are just 10 of the reasons I love Jenny Blake. And I hope something I talked about caught your interest and you'll check out her work. I hope something that you hear or read from her will resonate with you the way it has resonated with me. What stood out to you? What did you hear for the first time? Or what was a good reminder for you? Let me know. Leave me a comment in the show notes at bexb.org/JennyB. That's JENNYB. If you're on my email list, you are one of my favorite people, so I have sent you the check-in checklist that I learned from Jenny and that I expounded upon, hoping that the next time you notice that something's a little off with you, you'll check in to figure out how you can get back to the basics. If you're not on my email list yet, make sure you join at bexb.org/favorites so you will always get notified of every new episode. Plus, you'll get the fun extra things that I send out to all of my favorite people. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk with you next Friday. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexb.org to see how we can work together.